I'm on. Hello, students and families. It's Mrs. Jenkins, and it is Wednesday, May 6th of e-learning. And yesterday, you should have just got to enjoy a couple good books and hopefully used your strategies to figure out any words that you didn't know when you were reading. Remember, when you're reading, just a reminder, you don't necessarily have to write every word that you don't know down on a piece of paper and go through the entire decoding process. You're supposed to internalize it, which means that as you're reading, you just picture where you should divide the word, where you should break it up, and think about your syllable type so you know what your vowel sound is going to be, okay? But it is an option to write the words on paper and go through the decoding process. So today, we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the letter Y. Okay, so Y is a consonant and a vowel. All right, the only time that Y is a consonant is when it's at the beginning of a word, when it's in the initial position of a word. Okay, so the only time that Y is going to say yeah, like we learned when we're in kindergarten or preschool, is when it's at the very beginning of the word, like the word yellow. Okay, we all know the word yellow. Y is the very first letter of the word, so that's why it says yeah. Okay, any other place that Y is in a word, so if it's in the middle of a word or it's at the end of a word, it is considered a vowel. So anytime it's not the very first letter of a word, it's considered a vowel. Okay, so Y as a vowel, it's kind of confusing. It makes 3 different sounds. All right, so we're going to talk about that today. So Y as a vowel makes a long E sound. It says E. It also makes a long I sound. It says I. And it also makes a short I sound. It says I. Remember, that's our hand motion for a short I. I. All right. So when it says E and I is when it's at the end of a syllable or the end of a word. Okay. It's an open syllable. Okay. So we're going to talk about when it says a long E. All right, there's not really a true rule for it. Okay, sometimes it says a long E sound, sometimes it says a long I. So we're not talking about the short I yet. Okay, so when it says E and I is when it's an open syllable. Okay, so we all know this word is baby. All right, so Y is at the end of the word and it says E, baby. Okay. And then this word, it's a 2-syllable word again. We know that word is can. It's closed. The A is closed in, so it says ah, right? And candy. Okay, so baby and candy, the Y says E at the end of the word. Then we have the word fly and try. So at the end of these 2 words, the Y says I. Okay, so if it's at the end of the word or a syllable, it's either going to say E or I. Okay, you have to just decode it and figure it out and try both of them and see which one makes sense. Okay, Y also says I, makes the short I sound. Okay, and that is when it's a closed syllable. Okay, so it's never going to say I. If it follows the rules, it's never going to say I if it's at the end of a syllable of a word, if it's an open syllable. Okay, but if it's a closed is when it'll say I. Okay, so right here we have G followed by a Y, so we know it's going to be a soft G, right? J. So it's J, im, Jim. We hear a short I sound, except it's not spelled with the letter I, it's spelled with the letter Y. Okay, then we have I, him. So the Y is closed in by an M here, so it's a closed syllable, so it says I. It's closed in by M, N here, that blend, okay? So it's a closed syllable again, so it says I. Okay, so it says E, I, and I. Now, I am going to show you. I'm just going to read a few words for you real quick, and then we're going to move on. All right, so this first word right here, a lot of us know that word. A lot of us think that that's a red word, but it's not. It actually is a green word. It follows the rules. We can decode it, okay? So we know WH says W. When it's together, it just says W, makes the W sound. Now, the Y is at the end of the word, so I know it's an open syllable, nothing's closing it in. So I know that it's either going to say E or I, okay? So it says I in this case, the word is Y, I, Y, okay? Then we have a 2-syllable word. I know that because I have a vowel here and I have a vowel here, okay? They're not right next to each other, all right? So I'm probably gonna divide it right here. That's an open syllable, nothing's closing in the I, so I, tie, e, tiny. So right here, the I makes the long I sound, okay? Right here, the Y makes the long E sound. I, Y, tiny, tiny, okay? Then if you notice here, here's our vowel, because Y is not at the beginning, so it's considered a vowel, okay? It is a closed syllable because it's closed in by the PH, all right? So we know PH says like an F, it makes the F sound, right? So if, glyph, okay? Makes the short I sound. All right, now I'm just going to show you real quick how to decode. I'm going to go through the decoding process with you on 2 words because for your assignment, you'll have a couple words that you will need to decode, okay? So the first one I'm going to do, it looks pretty easy. It's a short word, okay? But some of you may not know it, so you may have to decode it to figure it out, okay? So you do the exact same thing, but Y is not at the beginning of the word, so it's considered a vowel, okay? So you find your first 2 vowels, underline them, mark them with a V, draw your bridge, look up, label anything in between. So there's 1 letter right there, it's a consonant, label it with a C. So it's VCV pattern, so remember you always try and pattern 2 first, where you divide it right after the vowel, okay? So RU, I'm looking at my vowel here, right? Nothing is closing in my vowel. It can run away. So I know it's an open syllable. I label it with an O, okay? Since it's open and it can run away, I know it's going to shout its name. So that's going to say U, okay? Now I'm looking at this syllable. The Y is open. Nothing's closing it in, so it is open, okay? And it's at the end of the word, so I know it's either going to say E or I, okay? So ru, b, ruby. And if you would have said rubi, you would have been like, I've never heard the word rubi before. So then you would know to try E for the Y instead of I. So ruby, ruby. Okay? So that is how you decode. I'm going to show you one more. Okay, this is kind of a hard one, but as long as you go through the decoding process, you can all read it, all right? So find your first 2 vowels. Remember, Y is a vowel because it's not at the beginning of the word. So find your first 2 vowels, underline them, mark them with a V, draw your bridge, look up, label anything in between. So there's 2 letters there. Okay, that's syllable division pattern 1, our most common. You know you always divide it between your 2 consonants, okay? So you look here first. My Y is closed in by the P, so I know it's a closed syllable. So I know since the Y is a closed syllable, it's going to say I. It's going to say the short I sound, I. Okay? Then I have SY. Nothing is closing in my Y. It's open, so I know that it's going to either say E or I. Okay, so I can now read this word, but you've got to think about your G here too, which we talked about last week. Okay? It's either going to say G or J, but I know that when it's followed by a Y, it's soft as pie, so it's going to say J, right? So J, I, P, Jip, E, C, gypsy. Okay, that word is gypsy, all right? Lots to think about here, but you can all do it if you take your time and go through the process, okay? So for your assignment today, you're going to have to read just a few words that follow these rules, and then you'll go through the decoding process and show your work on a couple words at the bottom of the worksheet. That is it for today. Good luck.